Welcome to Media Path. I'm Fritz Coleman.
And I'm Louise Palanker.
Our podcast has turned out to be a great way for folks to learn about some of the down-ballot candidates in the elections this year. Maybe the most important year of elections in the history of the United States. Today we have two. We're going to talk about a man running for California State Assembly in District 44, Steve Pierson. He's a community activist, a sound mixer, a composer, a general genius. He's got great experience in California state politics. We're going to see what Steve's up to. But first, I want you to meet Gil Cisneros. Gil is a former congressman. He is a wonderful man. He's also a philanthropist, and where do you find out why? He's a former Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness under the Obama administration. He had to step down to run for Congress again. We're going to get to go in a second. But first, Wheezy, what do you have this week?
I've been watching some television, Fritz.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, how about you? All right, here's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to tell you a little story. Archie Leach was a destitute little boy in Bristol, England, told that his clinically depressed mother had died and then abandoned by his alcoholic father. He was placed in the care of an unloving grandmother. At 16, Archie ran away and joined the circus, training as a stilt walker and pantomime actor and traveling to America to perform at New York's Hippodrome Theater. Young Archie decided to stay in the States, touring the country in vaudeville acts and honing his craft as an actor. Subsequent theater roles led to screen tests and a contract with Paramount Studios, provided he changed his name to Cary Grant. Jason Isaacs embodies Cary Grant in the 4-part BritBox miniseries Archie, which tells his story with empathy and dramatically turbulent detail. A bumpy and unfulfilling relationship with one's mother can leave a man with an inability to form healthy relationships with women. Unable to fix his desperately sad childhood circumstances, Cary Grant seems to have spent his adult years attempting to control his public persona and his romantic partners. The film is told from the point of view of Diane Cannon, Cary Grant's fourth but not final wife, and their daughter, Jennifer Grant. Cary Grant was the dashingly ideal British gentleman, and within the caste system that is English society, he felt a necessity to suppress the starkly lower-class reality of his origins. The darkness emerged when his control was challenged. For example, he could not celebrate any of Diane's achievements. They posed a threat. He questioned the way she dressed. He gave away her dog. He placed a coaster underneath her drink outside, as if the dew wouldn't have its own way with the patio furniture. Cary resisted the idea of becoming a parent, but welcomed daughter Jennifer in his 60s and then devoted himself to giving her the father he was denied. Through Archie, the lens widens and we see the full scope of the flawed human man who created the perfection that was Cary Grant. Sure, he possessed the building blocks, the talent, the charm, the face. But like any of us, he was nicked and bruised and working on it, pulling Cary Grant dangerously close to being relatable. Archie is on BritBox.
I was blown away.
Right?
By Jason Isaacs' portrayal.
Oh, my God.
And for me, it's always the voice. If they don't have the voice right, the rest is, I can't suspend my disbelief. But this guy nailed his voice.
Yeah.
Didn't he?
He nailed every aspect
really good.
Of his countenance, yes.
Really good. Well, I'm going to do a touching movie called Still, currently streaming on Apple TV. It's a look at the life and struggles of Michael J. Fox, besieged by Parkinson's disease. I know it sounds sad and depressing. It is far from that. It's inspiring. It's funny. It's a salute to family. It's a salute to the tenacity of a person in the face of physical struggles. I'm so glad I watched this. It's done by acclaimed documentarian Davis Guggenheim. He uses documentary footage, archives, even scripted elements to sort of put you in the moment. First and foremost, it reminds you of the megastar that Michael was in the 80s. He had this hit show, Family Ties, and I think, didn't you work on that? You were a page of that, right?
I was a page on the pilot, so you're welcome.
Okay. But anyway, so he's doing that show, which was brilliant because it was the first show where ex-hippie parents in the 60s end up raising a son who's a full-on Reagan Republican. Mm-hmm. It was a great twist. And there are great insights into how he had to shoot the TV show, get a few hours of sleep, and then go dreary-eyed and exhausted at night to go shoot Back to the Future. I don't know how he did it. We go back to the beginning of his life where Michael's raised in Canada on a military base. He was too short for his own good and had to use his wit and his charm to ward off bullies. The heart of the story is his Parkinson's diagnosis at 29 years old, which is a really rarely young age for that diagnosis. We get to watch his declining physical abilities. We see him fall down while he's walking. We watch his excruciating physical therapy, but we see him get lifted up by his wife and children, especially his wife, Tracy Pollan. She put her own life and ambition aside twice for Michael. First, she had a budding acting career herself. She was getting some fame, but shelved it to become Mrs. Michael J. Fox. Then second, she had to put herself second after his diagnosis in order to become his primary caregiver. Before the opening credits roll, you're convinced this is going to be depressing. It is not. People have asked Michael why he decided to allow people to see this part of his life, because he responded, "I love my mind." Isn't that amazing? And he is wonderful. You will realize that his character is much bigger than his physical stature.
Wow.
All right, I'm going to introduce a person I've known and befriended many, many years ago for odd reasons. Gil Cisneros is a politician and a philanthropist. He served as Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness in the Biden administration. He stepped down from that position to run for Congress. I said the Obama administration, I meant the Biden administration earlier. And I seem to be having the same confusion that former President Trump had about the two. But anyway, he had to step down to run for Congress in the 39th district. Full disclosure, his wife Jackie and I worked together at NBC for years. She was an excellent assignment editor at Channel 4 News. And I don't want to do what Jackie and I would both do, and that would be burying the lead in the news business. Gil and Jackie won a $266 million Mega Millions jackpot and became philanthropists. And they've devoted themselves to building many programs in education and other areas that have made many people's lives a lot better. When they won, I asked Gil for $5 in the commissary, and he blew me off like I was trash. Wow. I can't believe it. Hey, Gil, I'm so happy to see you. How are you?
I'm great. Good to see you, too.
You're doing a great job, my friend.
My first question is this. Before you won the lottery, did you and your wife used to sit there and have that if we won the lottery conversation? And then after you won the lottery, how much were you able to achieve of your hopes and dreams if you won the lottery?
You know, it's funny you should ask that, because she used to always want to play that game with me, and I never wanted to do it. I'm like, why? I'm like, I live in reality. It's like, you know, I don't want to think about hypotheticals or what if we could do this or what if we could do that. But then one day, you know, we were actually coming home from dinner, and we drove by a lottery office, and she asked me that question. Hey, what would you want to do if we won the lottery? And for whatever reason, I played along this time, and I told her, you know, I would want to start a foundation where we could help kids that were kind of in a situation like me when I was growing up and like in high school, right? Didn't really knew they wanted to do more, knew they wanted to go to college, but don't really know or didn't know what steps needed to be taken in order to make that happen. And, you know, the one time I played the game, it's like 3 weeks later, we won the lottery. And so after that, I told Jackie, I go, well, I guess now we got to start that foundation.
Time for you to start listening to your wife, my friend. That's all I'm saying. And you know what? The beautiful thing about your situation was, unlike 97% of lottery winners that turn out to be a gut-wrenching, horrible story where people were taken advantage of, they were bilked, they advise themselves on money. You have done so many wonderful things for wonderful people, and it's a great story. If I won the lottery, I hope I would live up to the moral code you guys have.
So what happens, and do you have to put a team together to manage your money, because immediately you have responsibilities with money that you've never had in whatever tax bracket you had previously found yourselves in? So what is the wise lottery winner want to do like day one?
No, I think that's right on what you just said. Was you know, we were very lucky that Jackie had an uncle who was a lawyer at a law firm. Sidley Awesome was where he was working at the time. And he said, hey, why don't you guys come down and talk to one of our partners? And so we did, and we sat down with him, and he's, you know, kind of telling us, well, you know, these are some of the things I think you should do. And, you know, he started talking about an estate plan and all these things, and about, like, you know, preparing for like when you die, and I'm like, we haven't even got the money yet, and we're already talking about when we die. Got everything kind of set in place for when that happens. But that was a good conversation to have because it really helped us kind of think, okay, we need to find an estate attorney. We need to find people that could help us manage the money. I would say like for the first year that we did this, right, and when we got it, you could drive yourself nuts just kind of like trying to watch it, right? Watch the stock market. Where's your money? And you got money in here, and you're watching all these things. And, it's about getting people. I think what's helped us is we got people that we could trust, we put that team together that have really been very helpful to us. And I will say Jackie was a little resistant to that at first because she was like, well, why can't you do it?
Oh my God.
You have an MBA and, why can't you just do this? And I'm like, this is just a lot more than we've ever really had to kind of deal with. So I think it's good.
Is there a lot of people that you couldn't stand that became your best friends?
No, I was pretty upfront with my family at first. Like, you're going to ask the questions, the answers. If you're going to ask the question, the answer is no.
Oh, that's funny.
No, but, I mean, first rule is don't give any money to Fritz.
Yeah, but why? Now you just wrecked
because
that.
Because he'll keep going back to the well. He'll just keep coming back to the well.
He'll keep coming back.
Yeah.
All right, listen to me. The 39th district is basically the San Gabriel Valley, and the San Gabriel Valley has
it's actually the 31st.
31st. The 39th was the.
We should give his trajectory because he was a congressman for 39, and now he's running for 31.
Thank you so much for straightening that out. Okay. Right. Anyway, it's the San Gabriel Valley is the area you're running to represent now, right? Mm-hmm. There's a heavy concentration of Asians there. You are endorsed by Aspire PAC, which is an Asian-based PAC. Mm-hmm. Understanding that the Asian community isn't a monolith, what are the specific concerns in the San Gabriel Valley right now that you'd like to address?
Well, I think, they've had a good member of Congress here for a while, and that's Grace Napolitano, who has been a champion for mental health and a champion for the environment. And those are things that I would definitely want to make sure that we carry on. I think the environment is a big issue here, both with the protecting the air and protecting the groundwater here. There's a lot of landfills that surround the San Gabriel Valley. There's the possibility of always contamination of that spillage kind of leaking into the groundwater and contaminating the water. So they want to make sure that their water is protected. They want to make sure the air is protected and do what we need to there. I know you keep hearing about the expansion of freeways and how we need to do more. One of the things I want to be able to bring into the area is we need to invest more in public transportation. I think in Southern California, we need to connect our cities and counties to make it easier for people to navigate, so that the car doesn't always become the first option. We need to make it more. When I was in Congress before, I got on the Metro people, MetroLink. I'm like, if you actually made it accommodating for me to get to a Dodger game with a train that actually ran after the game ended, I would use the public transportation to get to the game. We need to do things like that, right? You go to cities like Washington, D.C., you go to cities like San Francisco, where they've invested in public transportation, New York, obviously, as well. They've invested in public transportation. People use it. They rely on it. We need to do the same thing here, and that's one of the things that I want to make sure that we go, protecting our environment, investing in public transportation, and making sure that we're taking care of our working people here in the San Gabriel Valley.
You have dense ethnic populations, also Hispanic population in the San Gabriel Valley, and the first time you were in Congress, you were part of the Hispanic caucus. Are there any particular areas of interest that have to do with the Spanish population, East LA all the way out through the San Gabriel Valley?
I think immigration obviously is an issue that kind of comes up, right? I think, we need immigration reform. We need to make sure that we have a pathway to citizenship. One of the things that I was happy that I was able to do when I was at the Pentagon is we actually made it easier for non-citizens to become citizens in the military. They could actually get their citizenship after they finished boot camp if they did the paperwork and got everything done. As soon as they finished boot camp, they would be able to take the oath and become citizens. We need to do more.
That's not happening anymore. Does that not happen anymore?
Well, no. It would see. The thing is, people always assume that if you served in the military, you became a citizen, but it doesn't. That's not the case. You still have to go through the process. But what we did was we expedited it, right? So that in a matter of weeks, a person could become a U.S. citizen if they got their paperwork done, and all they needed to do was to finish boot camp in order to make that happen. Mm-hmm. So these are the things that we need to do, right? We need to find paths to citizenship. We need to support our dreamers, our DACA students, those that are here on TPS that have been here for like decades. These are issues that are important to not only the Hispanic community, it's actually very important to the Asian community too that you mentioned.
Absolutely. If you were in Congress right now, would you sign off on this bill they're negotiating right now? Or maybe you don't know enough about it, but what's your feeling?
Well,
about
it? I agree with the part about we need to. Well, are you talking about the border bill?
Yeah, the one right that they're fighting about
for Ukraine aid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look, we need comprehensive immigration reform. I don't know if this is the best way to go about doing it right now with that bill, but we do need to protect our borders. But individuals are coming here because they're in dire straits, they're in need, they're being oppressed, and in their countries that they live in, people just don't want to pick up and leave where they're from. I think, right? They're doing it for reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to be able to kind of have that pathway for them to kind of see if they qualify for asylum, if they qualify, to be here for like programs like TPS in order to do that, right? And, we need to make sure that we have that path to citizenship. So, I'm for bills and stuff and laws that we need to pass that are going to do that and help us find that way to make sure that we're actually taking care of people and we're not just throwing them aside. One of the trips that I took when I was in Congress before was down to the border. We went down to El Paso, and what we were doing then was just not, we were basically, just throwing people to the cartels by leaving them in Mexico. They were getting kidnapped. They were having to pay ransoms in order to be free. And, in order to get free, they weren't getting any services there. There's a lot of things that we need to do, right? I think we need to, like I said, we need to kind of find that path. And really what the Trump administration did was they had cut the workforce down there at the border so that there weren't as many people there for them to kind of handle these cases, right? We need to.
And then you have people like Nikki Haley. Right. And then you have people like Nikki Haley and some of the other Republicans that are saying, leave them in Mexico until they go through the process. Well, there's a reason why they're trying to get out of Mexico, because their lives are in danger. So I don't know. I mean, it's like these people are walking into walls. I don't know.
No, it is. And look, what they were doing right there wasn't working. It was putting people in danger, and we can't do that. We need to improve the process. We need to have the people there that can make sure that the progress that it's actually being done, that it's working and that it's getting done. And when you're cutting staff and you're cutting the number of people that can process these applications, you're only making it tougher and more difficult.
Now, you were a Republican until 2008, and you left the party when it became, in your words, too ideological. Can you elaborate on how you feel that presents itself to voters and how it has continued swinging into increasingly dangerous zones since 2008, the Republican Party?
People have tried to kind of make that case. When I ran in 2018, when he's a former Republican, look, I will put my Democratic record against anybody, voting wise, what I've done. And
no, but I want to know about your journey, and what, because I actually think that in the environment that we look at now, when we see that somebody is a former Republican. It's kind of commendable because your reasons for joining that party, those ideological reasons are now they're wiped. It's a very, very different party. So what was your arc?
This is not the party of the Republican Party is not the party of Lincoln. It is no longer it's not even really the party of Abraham Lincoln. I mean, Ronald Reagan,
No.
even though they like to kind of cling to him. When you think of like Ronald Reagan, like supported amnesty, giving, fighting a path to citizenship for those that were here. He also, supported the, common sense gun legislation with the Brady bill. These are things that would not fly today in the Republican Party. And I think it has gotten, too ideological, right? To think that this was the Republican Party was the party that stood up for ending slavery, right? But you don't really kind of seem like the people that are in there today it's like they're not about diversity and inclusion, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was also, when I was at the Pentagon, I was also the chief diversity and inclusion officer for the Department of Defense. And, I spent 2 hours getting grilled by Republicans as to why do we need diversity?
Really?
Why is it important?
Wow.
Yeah. When you got, the leadership of the military, the admirals and generals that are serving, right, when 92% of them are white men, I think we need to do something to diverse our leadership, right? And really, to me, diversity has always been about creating opportunity. The program that I got my scholarship in, I was very fortunate that, when I joined the Navy, somebody had said that I had met a senior enlisted guy, said, you should apply for this program. That program was the Navy's diversity program to help, uplift people of color and give them a chance to move into the officer ranks. They ended that program at some point, I think maybe about 5 or 6 years after I finished it. But now they're bringing it back and they're trying to grow it and really, but we need, diversity. It makes us stronger. It makes us better. It is something that we need to, look, businesses are doing it. We need to diversify our C-suites there in corporate America, but we also need to diversify our officer corps, our leadership there in the United States military as well. And that is something that, I took very seriously and something that I know Secretary Austin takes very seriously, and that we need to do that. But yeah, it was, I got grilled there for about 2 hours as to why is this important and why are we doing that, right? It's, but if they don't see, for some people, they just don't see the strength and diversity and having, everybody having a seat at the table and providing the diversity of input and the diversity of really kind of their lives. And giving that input, really does kind of make us stronger, and it gives us better ideas and it gives us a better pool to pull things from. And so that's why I think it's important. And I don't see that today in the Republican Party.
I 100% agree. Before we let you go, we want to bring in a friend of yours. You guys have battled together in the field of politics and or of like minds. Steve Pierson's going to say hello to you. Steve?
Hi, Gil. How are you? I don't want to overstate our relationship. I was thrilled to be part of the team that got Gil elected to Congress back in 2018. I was working with Swing Left at the time, and our organization was instrumental in helping flip some of these red to blue seats. And I'm excited to have you get back there.
Well, thank you, Steve. It is look. Swing Left did a tremendous job, not only in my race, but in a lot of seats that time to flip them.
What is Swing Left?
Now we need to flip them back. We need to flip them back.
We do.
What is Swing Left?
Indivisible and Swing Left were groups that popped up after Trump was elected. Like, what can we do? How can we help? And
that's exactly right. Right after Trump was elected, there was this influx of, anxiety, and folks really channeled that into productive action. And Swing Left was one of the groups that started, and that's how I got my start. I grew up in D.C. I grew up around politics. God bless you for wanting to go back there, Gil. I'm happy here in California. You can take that on, but I worked in the entertainment industry for a long time, and when Trump got elected, we were just so full of anxiety. We wanted to take action, and Swing Left was just getting started. So I helped build that program in Southern California. And what it did was it took volunteers from predominantly blue Democratic areas and got them out to red swing districts like the old CA 39, which has now been redistricted, but where we got Gil elected, and all over the nation we did that. And I was their national training director through 2020.
Awesome. Well, we don't want to hold you any longer, Gil, but I just want to wish you luck. I've known you and Jackie and know where your hearts are, and there's nobody that has the welfare of other people more in their heart than you do. And we're wishing you luck in this election, my friend. It's great to talk to you.
Well, hey, good to see you again. Good to catch up. I definitely miss you on the news there, but I'm glad you're doing good things here.
I don't miss me on the news.
Out.
Yeah. Hey, listen, what's the website they can go to help you out if they choose to?
It's easy to remember. GilOnTheHill.com.
I love that.
Gil.
Listen, good luck.
That was thank you very much.
Get down there with a weed whacker and start thinning stuff out in Washington. All right, my friend. I want to give.
Thank you so much for joining us, Gil.
I want to give.
Say hi to my mom, Gil.
Appreciate it.
I want to give our other guest, our in-studio guest, his current due. He's been very active in the California Democratic Party, as we said. He's represented the San Fernando Valley as a Democratic delegate, as he was talking to Gil about. He has been a California field director and national training manager for Think Left.
Swing Left.
Swing Left, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But think left before you swing left because you could hurt yourself. All right. He's been a community activist, which you'll remember was Barack Obama's path into politics. He was inspired / and I love you sort of hinted at it, inspired / irritated into activism in 2016, trying to explain to your daughter what happened in the 2016 election. He's currently running for California State Assembly District 44, which is North Glendale, Montrose, La Crescenta, Sunland, Tujunga, Shadow Hills, North Hollywood, Burbank, Toluca Lake, Studio City, Sherman Oaks Valley Village. And I say that only to tell you that I have lived in or are currently living in 3 of those communities.
There you go.
He hosted a podcast called How We Win. He's a sound engineer, composer, great experience in the entertainment industry. We're very happy to have Steve Pierson. There's your. We don't have any more time now because the.
Okay, that's it.
Okay,
Thanks.
good.
It was so nice to be here with you all. Goodbye.
Happy to have you. What I found fascinating about your story, Steve, is your dad worked with Lyndon Johnson.
Yeah.
Helping to implement the Civil Rights Act of 1964, maybe the single greatest, or was supposed to be the single greatest piece of legislation in the history of the United States.
And also, the Great Society.
Yes, and Medicare and Medicaid. Talk about your dad and your desire to sort of follow in his public service footsteps. Yeah.
He has so many great stories he used to tell about his years with Lyndon Johnson. And, for me, the most impactful president until we got to Biden. We can talk about that. Biden has had some incredible impact in his term. But, my dad was great. We lost him almost 2 years ago. And thank you. And I really wish he was here with me now as I'm running for office because he would have loved every single minute of this. He never understood the entertainment business, right? So he always wanted to be helpful and be a partner with me in that, but it wasn't his wheelhouse. And most of the stories that he told about Johnson aren't fit for the airwaves. I don't know what the podcast rules are, but
did he get close yelled at?
Well, so here's what happened. My dad was a Democrat from Oklahoma, which is a rarity even back then. And he came out to Congress to work for then Democratic Senator Mike Mulroney to do a kind of revamp Congress assignment. It was supposed to last a couple of years, and then he was going to go back to Oklahoma. And as he was finishing up his work, he got called into a meeting at the White House. He thought he was meeting with Harry McPherson, who was on Lyndon Johnson's staff. And he rolled up to the guard gate, and the guard said, I see you're seeing the president today. And that was news to him. So he said, okay, yeah. And those days you could drive right in there through the guard gate. And they put him in the waiting room there with the library. I think it's the not the Lincoln bedroom, the Roosevelt room, and said the president's going to be a few hours. Actually, can you wait? He's like, of course. And he didn't know anything about Johnson, so there was a biography of Johnson on the bookcase. So he just started reading through that. And about 3 hours later, he gets called into the Oval Office, and it's just him and LBJ.
Whoa. And
LBJ starts laying out the Great Society and what he wanted to do. And he's sitting there just listening, says, yes, sir. And then he stands up and he pokes him in the chest and says, here's what I need you to do.
Oh.
And he got, as we say, voluntold, so.
And what was it? What was he told to do?
He wanted him to help him,
do all that and get back to me tomorrow.
Do all that and get back to me tomorrow. Johnson didn't have a chief of staff, much like Kennedy. He had a very small crew of mostly lawyers who worked with him. So
was your dad a lawyer?
My dad was a lawyer, yes. So my dad went home, and my mom was literally packing boxes to go back to Oklahoma, and he said, "We've got to unpack. We're staying in D.C."
Wow. I often thought, because I mourn for my party sometimes, I often think that they don't have a spine and they need some direction, that what we need is an LBJ to twist a few arms. We have great programs like he had the Great Society. Get in there and let's do it. I mean, all this stuff that Biden is so good at that doesn't get the credit for, I really think needs to be sold stronger.
I hear this from everybody, and what we know is that as Democrats, we want our leaders to be strong. We want our leaders to go on offense, to put our head into the wind and not be back on our heels responding to all of these egregious and disgusting things that the Republicans are doing right now. And we win on all of the policy issues, 80% of the electorate when it comes to reproductive freedom, right? When it comes to common sense gun laws, when it comes to climate, 80% of the electorate is with us on that. So you're absolutely right, Fritz. We need folks who are talking about our values and not being responsive to the Republicans all the time. And I said it in the beginning, Biden is the most impactful president in my lifetime. What he has been able to achieve and what he is bringing to our economy and the people, we need to be shouting that from the rooftops, because the media will spell a different narrative. They're going to glom on to whatever scary poll is in the news, and that's all you're going to hear about.
Bad marketing. I mean, I think that the lower level people, the Democratic governors, the Democratic Congress people and senators need to get out there on the stump and sell it, because they're the people that people are more likely to listen to in their various districts.
Well,
I think
they're sending Gavin out there. Who else is going out?
Well, Gavin's doing a good job. Gavin's doing a good job.
Like who else? I think Cory Booker should be out. Who do you think should be out?
Cory Booker is a great speaker.
Absolutely.
There is, I'm going to go a deep cut here.
Okay.
There is a woman who is a messaging expert. Her name is Anat Shankur-Asario. And for anyone who is interested in political messaging, there's a great organization called Way to Win, and Anat has ASO Communications also. And what she's fond of saying is that Democrats are always selling the recipe and not the brownie. Right? And
that's brilliant.
We tend to get so in the weeds and so overcomplicate things when we really just need to talk about our values. You may remember, and your listeners may remember, in the last midterm elections, there was a time when the top message was protect our freedoms, even above the economy. That wasn't by mistake. There was a lot of work getting that narrative out into the media ecosystem, talking about it through social media influencers that, then the newscasters and stuff would pick up on, and made that the top issue. We talked about our values. We talked about how important it was to protect reproductive rights. We talked about how important it was to protect Social Security, and that became part of the zeitgeist. So what we need to do, and what more Democrats need to do, is instead of reading a poll and thinking, okay, this is what these people, what is important, we need to talk about what our values are, talk about the issues that we know resonate with everybody, and then move the polling right? Control the narrative. That's what Republicans have done so well for so long.
And the poll questions are written in a certain type of way.
Right.
So they get a certain response that's maybe even like it's been a leading question. So we kind of know what people's issues are. Abortion is a number one issue. And some men may think that it may fade into the background. It never fades in the background of a woman's mind who's of childbearing age. It doesn't. It's top of mind constantly. So those are key issues. We want to be able to send our kids to school without worrying all day.
Yeah.
Those are top of mind things. You don't need a pollster to tell you what matters to people.
Yeah. I've heard campaign pollsters say, oh, you want to do a poll? Great. What do you want the result to be? Right?
Oh, yeah, that's why.
Backwards engineering.
They're like those experts that are hired to testify in a criminal case.
And I don't want to paint with the broad brush, too, because there are some very good pollsters who will also talk about the inequities in the polling system. I can think of Cornell Belcher as one of them, who is always spouting the truth around that.
Yeah, he's great.
Well, your passions that you have running for your state office are also passions that are very important to the United States, like good jobs, the housing crisis, which is bad everywhere, but no worse than California because we have good weather to be homeless out here, universal health care, and a clean environment.
Yeah. I mean, it's simple. Like, we need to put people first and get away from this zero-sum game thinking that has dominated our economic policy for so long. And it's been engineered that way to, keep people of influence in influence, right? But here's the thing. The zero-sum thinking is a complete misnomer, and it's rooted actually in institutional racism. When you are giving to other people, when you're giving investment opportunities to other people, when you're investing in communities that are left behind, that's how you build our economy. It's equitable, it's the right thing to do, but it's also what builds revenue for everybody. It's not a pie that you have to share, you're baking more pies. So, all of these issues when it comes to housing and homelessness, right? You have a lot of attitudes about building housing in certain neighborhoods that it's more difficult. Cities not adhering to their housing requirements and fighting the state on the mandates that we have to house folks and everything. You can't paint with a broad brush. Certain housing is better in some areas than others, but we all need to work towards the same North Star, and that's we got to house everybody.
And the other thing that I think that in conservative thinking, it's like, this is mine, don't come and take it. But what you're saying is that the more people have, the more they can spend on what you sell, or whatever company you work at, and then you'd get a raise. It's just kind of like when everybody does better, and it's just that simple. There's abundance if everyone's needs are met. Then they can buy a toaster. Then they can buy the streaming service that you work at, HBO Plus or Max or whatever they're calling it.
That's right.
So it's like, let's give people more so they can support the economy, and you can get a raise or your company can thrive. But what I wanted to do was like a little primer, because a lot of folks, even who are interested in politics, don't understand how state governments work, and that it's a model of our federal government. So explain what position you are running for and how it all works.
Thank you. Great question. And full disclosure, before Trump got elected, I didn't really pay attention to state legislature. I didn't really even know who my assembly member was. I would just vote for the D, and move on with my life. California happens to be the fourth largest economy in the world, and the work we do in the state legislature has an amazing impact on folks' lives, not just in California, but in the entire country, and in fact, in the whole world. But the assembly is like the House of Representatives for the state government. So just like our federal government has Congress, which is made up of the House of Representatives and the Senate, and the executive branch, which is the president and the vice president, we have the assembly and the state senate. And then, of course, the governor and lieutenant governor is our executive branch. So I'd be one of 80 assembly members serving, as you said, Fritz, the San Fernando Valley, where I've lived for 30 years and raised my family and worked and used to own a small business in the entertainment industry. And like I said, the decisions we make, we handle funding, so stuff like mental health, addiction services, money for that. We have a proposition coming up on the ballot, Proposition 1, that is Governor Newsom's, project to get more housing for mentally ill folks and addicted folks, and more wraparound services for that. It's a way to raise some more money through a bond measure. And then I'm kind of digressing, but also taking some of the money we have for housing that we need. So those are the kind of things that we can do. Social programs, we can help stimulate businesses, we can protect renters, we fight for people. It's a job where I get to wake up every day, and my job is work to make people's lives better. I mean, what a gift. And I mentioned the impact that California has on the rest of the country and the world. If you look at some of the climate legislation that we've been able to pass here in California, we have transformed the automobile industry because we have a mandate for all electric cars by 2035. All new car sales in California will be electric by 2035. That has single-handedly ramped up the production of electric vehicles all over the country. And we just passed, Senator Stern just passed some legislation last term on corporate accountability to disclose and adjust for your carbon footprint through all three, Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3. I don't want to get into the weeds on that, but identifying and dealing with the carbon footprint for corporations doing business in California. So if you want to do business in the fourth largest economy in the world, then you have to adhere to our rules. And the federal government always catches up with that. So it's an exciting opportunity to really make a huge impact. Like I said, God bless anyone who wants to go to D.C. right now. No. California is where it's at.
And fixing it at the state level will fix it at the national level eventually.
It does, and we work with our federal counterparts too. So, in situations like we're in right now, where Republicans are in control of the House, and there's not a lot, if any, really basically zero legislation going through our government, we can get a head start on some issues, and we can work with our federal counterparts there, so that once they're on the books here, it makes it easier for them to bring that up nationally too.
Another thing you're passionate about is gun violence. That happens to be something that hurts my soul more than other issues. But I've always been very proud of my state. Mm-hmm. Because when you look at now the new open carry law in Florida, which is just irresponsible, Texas is off the chain. I'm proud of where this state is. What should we do to improve what is already one of the best systems in the country?
Yeah, I'm going to steal this line from Governor Newsom. We have some of the strongest gun laws in the country, but we have some of the weakest gun laws in the world. Right?
Wow.
And gun violence is the number one killer of our children. Number one killer of our children, of people aged 21 and younger. Gun violence is the number one killer. So we just passed some good legislation. We have a tax on ammunition that's going to go to gun violence prevention programs. We have limitations to where you can carry guns in our state that Senator Portantino just championed. We have some, and everything we do, including that federal legislation that we got passed when Democrats were still in power. It seems piecemeal. And it seems like a small step because we need to do so much more, but it does save lives. It saves lives. But that's something that we have to do federally. Like, we need an assault weapons ban right now. There is no reason why anyone should have an assault weapon if you're not in the military.
I don't get the disconnect. We were talking about polls earlier. The whole country polls, people, 75 to 80% of the American people want to have red flag laws or,
right.
At least the minimum of background checks.
Even Republicans, even gun owners.
I don't get they're voting against what would be their interest, I would think. I don't get why they can't translate what people want to legislation.
Campaign funding.
It's about money.
Yes,
that's what I was going to say. It's all about money. There's still a lot of gun money and politicians who are still willing to kowtow to the NRA. So, we need more folks with political will to stand up to it. The work that groups like Moms Demand Action and Brady have been doing is amazing. Their membership now dwarfs the NRA, and Wayne LaPierre just had to resign.
I love that. I just love to watch
him
him twist in the wind.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's change moves slowly, and it feels Sisyphean. You're pushing that boulder up the hill, and it comes back down on you. But we need to keep doing it. And the important thing about any of this, like real institutional systemic change, we need people with us. We can't do it on our own. Everything that we've done, every major social movement for change in this country that's ever been successful is because there's been people behind it, people on the ground making noise, showing up, and making their voices heard. So, that's how we're going to get it done.
Well, just so you know that you're stepping into a grand circle and completing it for us, because we've had Adam Schiff on the show twice.
Okay.
We've had Laura Friedman on, who is now running for Adam Schiff's seat.
And I'm running for her seat.
And you're running for her seat. So
That's right.
here we
plans
are.
are working.
Yes, exactly. So tell us what you know about Sacramento. Have you visited? Do you get to audit the class? Do you get to shadow somebody? Or how do you learn and get ready for possibly taking on this position?
That's such a great question. I do have friends who are serving in the assembly there, and I go up to Sacramento a lot. As a candidate, I like to call it speed dating, because I go and I'm up there for a couple of days with just back-to-back meetings, getting to know the folks up there and listening to the issues that are important to folks, and it's exciting. There's a ton of really inspiring people who are leading the way up there. Folks like Assemblymember Pilar Schiavo, who came from a union organizing background and is now doing amazing work there, and I can't wait to work with her. We have an assemblyman here in Los Angeles named Isaac Bryan, who is such an inspiring leader. I mean, you were talking about who some of the great voices that can take our democratic message out there. He's certainly one of them. Jesse Gabriel is a neighboring district assembly member who is now the chair of the budget committee. So he's essentially the second most powerful assembly member there, and he's been of great help to me. And it's I would say the important thing to know about how we get things done in Sacramento is, of course, you have to be able to work within different caucuses. You have to have the ability to build coalitions amongst different groups, because there's a lot of interest there. But, I'm going to go back to what I just said. To get the big things done, you mentioned that in my bio that I'm a fan of single-payer health care, or universal health care. I certainly am.
CalCare.
Talk
about that. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Just to finish my thought, to get CalCare done, it's going to take people. It's going to take people power, not just us up in Sacramento building those coalitions, but folks standing up and making noise. Right now, our healthcare system is completely upside down and backwards. It is a system that is built on making enormous profit off of sick people with no incentive for keeping people healthy. It is expensive, and too many people fall through the cracks. Here in California, I'm very proud of our enrollment. We have a very high enrollment rate, and as of January 1st, we are now covering undocumented residents here in California too. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, they had a big bump in the recent, not only in California but nationally, in the Obama Affordable Care Act. They had a big bump in signups. Is that a good sign that people are trying to protect this system? Because there are people trying to destroy it too in the red states.
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot to do. I was part of a coalition to protect Obamacare back in, I guess it was 2018, when the Republicans were trying to repeal it. And again, we got a lot of people on the ground out in front of offices, marching, rallying, making noise. And a big part of that was public information around enrollment and making sure that people don't miss enrollment opportunities. Because back then, and I'm sure still now, Republicans were kind of hiding the enrollment deadlines because they wanted Obamacare to fail. And so we saved the ACA, and it's helped a lot of people. My own daughter was a preemie when she was born. She was just 1.5 pounds. This was 21 years ago. And we had our sag-aftra health insurance because I've been a sag-aftra.
God bless that,
yeah.
Boy. I'll tell you. It's saved my family.
Yes, it saved my daughter's life, and that price tag was $1.5 million. And we would have been facing a lifetime of medical debt. We would have been ruined. Still today, even though our enrollment is very good, too many people fall through the cracks. Too many people are making the choice in our state, in the 4th largest economy in the world, between medicine that they need and food.
Yes. The at-risk food thing. And it boils down to one thing for me. I don't think a tax-paying person who has spent 65 years feeding the economy of the United States at whatever level job he has. If he has a catastrophic heart issue at 65, he should end up bankrupt. I think that's immoral.
Right. It is. It's immoral, and it's also unsustainable. It's incredibly expensive. When you talk about the strain that uninsured folks have coming into hospitals and ERs and all that, so I really believe in single payer nationwide. I would like to see it happen nationally. I think we can get CalCare done here in California and show the way and pave the way.
I was going
to
to say, if CalCare works, would that be a good example to the federal government?
Absolutely.
I would hope so. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what an honor. It would be the honor of my life to help get that across the finish line.
Well, when you talk about insuring undocumented citizens, that feels like a Fox talking point.
Residents, I guess you should say.
But it just feels like something they're going to run with. Like, why should I pay to insure people who aren't citizens? And so I always try to frame things in ways that are attractive to selfish people. So how does it benefit the Fox viewer if we insure those folks?
Yeah, well, first of all, what we just talked about, what's the cost to us when an uninsured person comes into an emergency room? Mm-hmm. So what happens?
We're going to pay sometime.
You're paying anyway, and you're paying more. It is more expensive, and also because folks don't have access to health insurance, they are less likely to go in for preventative care. They are less likely to take care of injuries and illnesses as they come until they get so severe that they're forced to go into the emergency room, and now the outcome for them is way worse, of course. And for the selfish person who is just thinking about themselves in this situation, it's actually a bigger strain on our economy and on their pocketbooks too. So
meanwhile,
it's the right thing to do, but it's also the fiscally responsible thing to do.
And meanwhile, those undocumented people are picking your food. And
that's right. That's right.
They're not just here sitting at home watching, reruns of Happy Days. They're working harder than any of us.
And
absolutely.
That's what that always made me smile about the undocumented crisis. There are people in North Dakota who've probably never seen a Mexican person. So now we're going to stop these people at the border. They're taking over the country. First of all, the California agricultural economy is 25% of the agricultural economy of the United States. We need those workers in this state.
That's right.
Meantime, these people who work elsewhere are bitching about it and they don't know what they're talking about.
We are the breadbasket of the world. Yeah.
Let me ask you a couple of structural questions. Your tenure will be 2 years, right?
That's right, yeah.
Are there term limits in the state assembly?
There are. We have 6 terms that we can do, so I can serve 12 years.
Do you feel like... I mean, when you're just 2 years, I think this is probably more obvious in the Congress. But when you have a 2-year tenure, like half your time is fundraising for the next election. That seems counterproductive.
You're not wrong. It is tough. And I think you're right. It's a bigger problem with Congress. Members spend half their time raising money for their next campaign. And you really want folks to be able to focus on the issues, dig deep, and write good legislation and championing it and make sure it gets through. So, the Assembly has term limits, and we expanded our term limits. They were actually shorter terms before, so I'm glad they expanded it. I think it takes most folks a few years to get into leadership and get into positions where they're really, exercising the levers there in Sacramento to maximum benefit. But fortunately, I think in my particular district, at least, it's not a red to blue seat. It's a very safe blue seat. And as long as I'm doing right by my constituents, the people that I seek to serve, and responding to them, being available to them, and working on the issues that are important to them, the reelection and the incumbency is, it's not a done deal. Of course, you have to run for re-election every 2 years, but it's not as much as like what Gil has faced and these red to blue seats and some of our frontline assembly candidates who are always under threat and have to be running for office all year long.
Talk for a moment, if you would, about the difference between campaign money from donors, small amount donors. PAC money and then dark money, because I'm wondering if folks on the Republican side of things don't have to campaign as hard because this dark money is coming in, maybe coming in from another country, but it's laundered. So explain campaign financing. a little bit if you could.
Yeah. First of all, it's egregious the amount of money that we spend on campaigns. I mean, to a certain extent, it's necessary. Stuff, here you see my yard sign behind us. That cost actual money to produce a yard sign. So, we have to raise money to reach voters. We have what's called IEs that work in races too. So those are independent expenditures, and here in California, we've done a good job at creating disclosure laws, so we know who are the IEs, who is working in races other than the candidates. So we're pretty transparent about that. But yes, there's a lot of Democrats who take a lot of corporate money. I'm very proud of our campaign. We have almost 4 times the individual donations of any other candidate in this race.
Wow.
And you can add to that wealth by what's your website?
PearsonForCalifornia.com. Okay. What a nice
We're not playing around here. We want you to become wealthy. We need friends in high places.
PearsonForCalifornia.com. We are a grassroots campaign. We're the top fundraiser coming out of the first disclosure, and I haven't taken any corporate PAC money, and we're really proud of that. We are a grassroots, people-powered campaign.
I think a great way to end this interview is for you to talk about the melancholia that your daughter suffered after the 2016 election, and explaining to her what the hell just happened is part of the reason why you became an activist.
Big sigh before that one, right? I felt like I had blinders on. I really did. I was volunteering for Hillary. I was making phone calls. I was trying to talk people off a cliff in Florida who thought, Trump's going to get elected. And I said, no way. No one's going to fall for that grifter's, BS. And after he was elected, my daughter looked at us and said, are we ever going to be happy again? And we were, like so many of us, so despondent. What I didn't know then, and what I will share with you all and the listeners, was we all have great capacity to make an impact on our democracy. And we don't teach civics anymore in school, really. We do a little bit, but not since the 70s have we been really serious about showing people how they can get involved and take agency in civics and in our democracy. And what I found when I started Swing Left, sort of by accident, signing up to do a house party that became the largest one in the country, had about 220 people at a church hall down the street, was we have agency. We all have a circle of influence. And when you start doing that, when you start stepping out of your comfort zone and taking action, it's incredibly empowering. I like to say action is the best antidote for anxiety. And so selfishly, that's why I got into this work. And then I was hooked. You find leaders like Mayor Bass who carry themselves with such joy. She's a community organizer to her core. She's part of this joyous community of people dealing with dire issues. Dire issues, life and death issues. But because we're all part of the solution, because we're all working to own our power and our own influence in our lives, we have a lightness and a joy about the work that we do. And we get to do what we can every day, and then we pass that on to the next generation. They come up behind us, and that's the arc of history.
And your daughter got to watch you do that. And how did that inform the second half of her childhood?
She doesn't care for it. No, I'm kidding. No, she is engaged. I will tell you, one of the things that gives me the most hope, and this is so cliche to say the kids give me the most hope.
Oh, me too.
But they really do, and I'll tell you why. It's not just a pie in the sky, the kids are our future kind of thing. When you look at the last election, the midterm election, we had record registration from young people, and we had record turnout from young people. What I know from my campaign background is if kids don't vote the first opportunity they have to vote, that first time they're eligible, it is incredibly difficult to get them engaged until they are 30. So there's this, 20 to 30, decade of folks that are really hard to get engaged into our elections. Mm-hmm. But if they vote the first opportunity that they have, they become habitual voters. It becomes part of their identity and who they are. And that's what we're seeing all over the country. We're seeing people stepping up, these kids stepping up who know the existential threat of climate change very intimately, who have been affected by gun violence, who in the case of my daughter has fewer rights than her mom did when she was her age. And they're not standing standing for it.
That's what I wanted to say. You were talking about the kids are our hope. They truly are. I have a daughter that was 23 at the time when Roe v. Wade was overturned. She was 22. Mm-hmm. She lived at Loyola Marymount with 5 other girls in a house, and I thought, I want to call down there and see how they feel about, the Dobbs decision. And they were pissed. I called down there and they said, no, this cannot stand. And I thought that made me feel good. I thought, are they going to be nonplussed about this? They said, I'd love to care about it, but I'm getting my nails done this afternoon. They were angry. And I really think they're going to be activists in this whole thing. Second of all, and if you pay too much attention to the polls, you can go into a deep depression. But if you look at where the polls were in the midterm, the 2022, how we violated all those polls and how we came out on the hopeful side of all that, I just think that's where we're going to be at 24. I just have a feeling we're going to be okay at the end of 2024.
Well, I have a question for Garrett and Mason and Jordan. I'm just wondering, did you guys register as soon as you turned 18? And Garrett, do your friends talk about registering? Garrett's only 16 years old, but I just want to know how the election of Trump has impacted your awareness of politics and the role that you can play.
I think I did register as soon as I was 18.
Mm-hmm.
That was right around the 2016 election.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But I was still too young to vote at that time. But I did vote.
Do you get a sense of how important this next election is? That's what I worry about with kids. Are they so involved in their own lives and the narcissism of youth? Do you feel how important this is?
I mean, I'm planning to register when I'm 18, but I feel like a lot of people nowadays don't really care. I feel like when you're raised in a place where it's not a conversation that happens,
you don't have to worry. That's a very interesting point.
You don't have to worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking care of it for you.
Mm.
Yeah, but I think that I know that you probably know that a lot of people got into politics because Trump was elected. So as dark as this cloud was on our horizon, it awakened a lot of activism in folks to get involved in I went to the first indivisible meeting that happened, in Santa Barbara, and it was just a church full of people just wanting to know, like, what can we do? And you probably had the similar experience of this. Just there was that period between the election and the inauguration where we booked tickets to Washington to take part in the Women's March, and because everybody was just hungry for something they could do to be a part of the solution to this.
That's absolutely right. And we saw such a huge influx of volunteer energy like we haven't seen, since the 60s, really, of engagement. And, we had a very strong coalition that Obama was able to bring along on his message of hope and of change, hope and change, right? This dwarfed that. Unfortunately, fear and the rise of fascism, really galvanized more people than the hope and change message. But, we need to keep that energy going. And you talked about the polls and how they were, so many people, got it wrong in terms of this so-called red wave that was going to happen in the last midterms. I really like to look at volunteer enthusiasm as the true marker. You can look at some bellwether elections like you see in the not off years, because every year is the different elections, but like Virginia and some of the state house races that we see, and look at how volunteers have engaged in those races and what those results have been as a better bellwether for what's happening in our federal elections. And, people are still stepping up. They're still volunteering, and that gives me great hope for what you mentioned, Fritz, is yet again the most important election of our lives.
And one other question. I don't want to. Weezy will ask a positive question, but I'll ask this dark one before we finish.
Yeah, let's go dark and then end.
Just no. I mean, I'm really. This occupies like 85% of my consciousness during the day. Regardless of this, 2 parts of this question. Regardless of which way the election turns out, whether Trump is voted in or whether he loses, do you worry about the turmoil in the country? I mean, I think there's the chance for violence and some bad behavior no matter which way it goes. And I worry about that.
It is a dark question, and I would be foolish if I didn't worry about that. I believe our democracy is on a very thin line right now. And it is going to take all of us not going to sleep and staying woke and staying engaged to make sure that doesn't happen. What I will say is this extremist MAGA minority is actually small, but very, very loud and obviously very influential and has hijacked this Republican Party. But there are way more of us than there are of them. And I'll take it back around to what we talked about. Democratic priorities, democratic policies are wildly popular with the bulk of our country.
Yeah, centrist policies. The country really is centrist, aren't they? It goes either way. And Trump, again, as people say every day, on all the talking head shows, Trump is not the problem. He's the indication of the problem. So even if Trump gets elected out, the overall flavor in the world of authoritarianism is not going to go away. So our job is not done, even if he's not elected.
Yeah, in many ways, Trump just threw a big spotlight on the problem, because he's so loud and overt about the way, the rise of fascism. Frankly. And, Biden sort of called it out with the kind of semi-fascism or whatever his term was. But, when you look at history and what's happening, then, you can't call it anything else. And so I guess thank you, Trump, for shining a spotlight on what was happening already. But, now there's people who see it and who are engaged. And we've all got to come together and fight like heck to make sure that we, take care of people.
I was wondering about principled Republicans at the state level, because we saw them in Rusty Bowers and in Georgia in terms of resisting the pressure from Trump after the 2020 election. We saw principled Republicans on the state level. We don't see them on Capitol Hill right now.
No, they got voted out. They lost their primaries.
They got primaried. Mm-hmm. So what do we see at the California State House in terms of a MAGA representation, or are the Republicans at the State House more of the principled style?
That's a great question. We have a Democratic supermajority in the State House, and they certainly, the Republicans in the State House will try to catch us on some things, and they've thrown some criminal justice bills and stuff like that, some fentanyl stuff, some sex trafficking bills that painted a very broad brush that were kind of engineered to trap Democrats, and they did. But overall, I think the problem that we have in Sacramento right now is not one of party, but of money. And the different legislators and where their funding is coming from. There's still a lot of fossil fuel money in the legislature, even amongst Democrats. And we know how important it is to move further and faster into our green economy and save our future, save our kids' future from the effects of climate change. And there are forces that are working against that. We're a huge fossil fuel producer here in California. So, there's some issues that shouldn't be partisan that we can all work on. And, I'm a little bit old school. I'm a progressive Democrat proudly, but I'm pragmatic. And I grew up in D.C. at a time when we all could at least get along and work on issues, even if we agreed on the path forward. So, that's going to be how I operate in Sacramento.
Well, Wheezy's going to wrap this up, but I can't tell you how interesting this conversation was. It was a great primer.
You can tell me. Go ahead.
No, it was a great primer on state politics.
Elaborate.
I love getting your opinion, because you were sort of a megaphone for the issues that are important not only to California but for the whole country. Just enjoyed it very much. Thanks for coming here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Good luck to you, my friend. And if you win the primary, come back here and we'll beat the other person up with you.
Well, yeah, in a respectful way. Sure, let's do that.
Sure, respectfully. Here come your closing credits. Thank you so much for joining us. We would love to continue this conversation with you on Instagram and Twitter, where we are at MediaPathPod, and on Facebook, where our show page is MediaPath Podcast, and our Facebook group is MediaPath with Fritz and Wheezy Podcast Community. I'm also on TikTok, Louise Palanker. You can find full video podcast episodes loaded with bonus visual content on our YouTube channel at MediaPath Podcast, and you can write to us at MediaPathPodcast@gmail.com. And if you enjoy this show, please give us a nice rating, if you would, wherever you get your podcast. Talk about us with your friends over brunch and on social media. You can sign up for our spicy little newsletter at MediaPathPodcast.com. We will only bother your inbox just that once a week, and trust me, it's worth a read. There's lots of funny photographs and quizzes, and contest opportunities. We thank our guests, Steve Pierson and Gil Cisneros. Our team includes producer Dina Friedman, John Maddox, Bill Filipiak, Thomas Hubble, Mason Brown, Garrett Arch, Chris Baldwin, Jordan Reyes, and you. Our theme music is by me and John Maddox, and I am Louise Planker here with Fritz Coleman and Steve Pierson. Be well and wise, and we will see you along the media path.